Is getting into nursing still worth it financially? Find out on today's episode of the Earn It podcast. Despite growing criticism that nursing wages have stagnated when adjusting for inflation, nursing still remains one of the strongest financial career choices in America because wages are still high relative to most occupations. Employment remains exceptionally stable, and hospitals are facing many of the same inflationary pressures as the nurses they employ, which is something that a lot of folks seem to forget. So let's get into it. Is nursing actually becoming a bad career, or do we just have victims comparing themselves to an impossible standard? That's the question. I have spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. If you spend a lot of time in different Facebook groups, the number one thing that I keep seeing is a graph. And this graph shows, that nursing wages are essentially stagnant when you consider inflation, which, does appear, if you take it at face value, and I will just go off of, for the purpose of this episode and for the purpose of the argument's sake, I will say that, fine, I accept everything that is inside of the, that's notated in the graph. And maybe I'll somehow post a link to it in the description or something. I'll make it the thumbnail maybe. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do to kind of show you what I'm talking about. But if you've seen it on social media, you might be a little bit discouraged. And if you're a nurse listening to this, it's crazy. But I understand why somebody working as a nurse might begin to become a little bit angry by this or a little bit frustrated by this. That's because after a while of kind of working the same job with the same kind of level of income, you become accustomed to a lot of different things, and what you're making at some point will it'll start to seem like it's not enough anymore, especially when you look at a graph like that. So, let's talk a little bit about some key points. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal that basically said the following: manufacturing jobs no longer guarantees middle-class income. Traditional office jobs are increasingly threatened by outsourcing and AI. I know some people are worried about nursing being outsourced to AI, and I will be addressing that in this episode. Healthcare has become America's largest engine of job creation, and nursing has become one of the safest ways to build wealth. Let's look at some quick stats. RN median wage is $93,600 a year. Advanced practice nurses, the average is $132,050 a year. Projected NP growth of 35%. Now let's look at the median for all other wages. You ready? $49,500. Okay. So it's about a $43,000 difference per year that nurses have an advantage over everyone else. And this is proportional wherever you go. Some places are, exceptionally crappy for this, right? Some places, an RN salary isn't the greatest when you consider the cost of living. And what I would have to say to that is vote with your feet and get the hell out of there and go be a nurse somewhere where it's better for you. Look at the numbers, look at the cost of living versus the amount of money, right? Where I live, it's about $45-ish an hour. It's 2026 right now. At the time we're recording this, $45-ish an hour. And the cost of living is pretty high. If you were to turn your nose up at a job, let's say you're making $45 an hour for like a couple years, you might say, oh, why would I go and work for $31 an hour? But then when you look at, maybe this is in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma where, a beautiful 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house costs around $150,000, to buy, or $200,000 at the most, and these places do still exist in the country, then you're talking about, oh, well, basically I make $45 an hour, right? It's just, it's generally proportional. Let's talk about the inflation portion. So looking at the graph, or looking at, and you can look this up yourself. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're riding in the car, you're on your way to whatever you're doing. Just know that this graph shows a flattening of the curve, matching inflation. And basically, it's not rising above the bar anymore after you adjust for inflation. Here's what we need to talk about with this. Wages saw a huge spike, obviously, before and during the COVID era. During and immediately after the COVID era, right? But so did everything else, right? So increased inflation doesn't just mean for the workers, and a lot of people seem to forget this. A pack of like COVID or flu tests before might have been, 1/3 of the cost 5 years ago than they are now. So the point is to not beat a dead horse and to not draw this out any longer. Hospital buy a lot of shit, right? Meds, tubing, syringes, electricity, food, software, insurance, different construction projects, medical equipment. The cost to hospitals has absolutely fucking exploded over the last 6 to 8 years. Just like everything else that me and you buy on a daily basis, you just need to know that the hospital has increased all of its cost. At the same time, another expense, which is you and me, have also increased because of this. So it's not that a bunch of hospitals everywhere are just, having a bunch of people swimming in money, taking advantage of a bunch of crap, right? That's not what's going on. And what you need to realize is by the more and more wages you blindly ask for because of inflation, you are ignoring the fact that inflation affects everyone and everything in this entire country. If we ignore the rest of the world, right? Everyone and everything in this country, including the organization that is in charge of paying you, because all the stuff that they buy, and now that AI is becoming a thing, there's a pressure to use AI for everything. And I'm not going to make us, again, I'll address one little AI thing I said about nurses being replaced. I'll do that shortly. I'll probably make a whole new episode on it because people are freaking out about it on LinkedIn because they're absolutely stupid. But the issue is, it's just largely being ignored that healthcare organizations also have an increased cost. Now, nobody at any healthcare organization is paying me to say anything like this. You can say whatever you want about various healthcare organizations, but I assure you the vast majority of them are not just swimming in profits. That's just not what happens. If anybody is absolutely swimming in profits, it's certain insurance companies. That's where the money is in healthcare, is in insurance companies, not in the healthcare facilities. You have to think, if somebody comes in and they need, some huge trauma comes in and they need blood transfusions and surgeries and chest tubes and ICU hospitalization, or they will die, that hospital is out all of those costs, whether they ever get paid by this individual or not. So if someone doesn't have insurance, and they go in and they have all of this stuff done because otherwise they will die, that hospital has to absorb the cost, including paying you $40, $30, $40, $50, $60 plus dollars an hour. Meanwhile, you're saying that the entire career path is stagnated because of inflation. It's just simply not true. Okay. Comparison nobody makes. We compare nursing today to nursing 10 years ago. Instead, you need to compare nursing to other careers today. Would you rather have a $70,000 a year office job that AI might replace, or a $95,000 a year nursing job that almost every hospital in America needs? The comparison isn't nursing versus the past. It's nursing versus every other realistic option out there today. Healthcare continues to generate jobs even as other sectors are cooling off. And this just really underscores also another thing that you have going for you, which is resilience and protection against new technologies, at least in the near future. In the very near future, a lot of other jobs are in actual serious danger of getting replaced if artificial intelligence continues to increase. Nurses are not in danger for this. And I will now address kind of something, again, that I've seen a lot of other nurses bring up and freak out about for no reason at all on social media, which is these stories coming out about how nurses were replaced at this hospital, this healthcare organization, that healthcare organization. And yes, it is 100% true. However, there's multiple things that are being completely ignored and purposely not mentioned. And this is why I think, again, is another reason why you deserve to be taken less seriously if you're falling for this, right? If you're a super ultra nurse critical thinker, you should maybe think for a second. When you see a headline, you should read the article, and then you'll find out that we're talking about a healthcare organization that employs 5,000 people or something, or at least a couple thousand people, and 14 people were replaced and these are jobs that I don't really understand why nurses were doing in the first place. These are administrative jobs that nurses happen to be performing. And a lot of healthcare organizations do this. They have these higher positions and they have RNs fill the role because there's so many RNs that work there, right? Because they have the clinical kind of know-how. So if they're going to be in other administrative support positions, it's probably good that they understand the healthcare industry or how a hospital functions. So it just makes sense to pick an RN to do various administrative clinical-based jobs. And that's exactly what has been happening for a long time. However, certain organizations are realizing, this person does this long list of things over and over and over and over again. Can we automate this with our current technology? When the answer is yes, they automate it with the current technology and people lose jobs. So a handful of people at these organizations, each time it happens, are losing their job. And another thing is, again, you're in an administrative position, and a lot of these folks are remote, and some of these folks are literally sitting at home, not even on the phone with patients or talking to patients. They're either messaging patients, emailing shit, or they're just going through things and having a second set of eyes and summarizing it in a different way so that somebody else can later read it. Think about the job, right? So there's that aspect of it. The whole part about only 10 or 15, maybe 20 of them being replaced in a large organization at a time. And then you have to think, why are we having people go to school, and a lot of these organizations requiring a bachelor's degree in nursing to go and sit at a desk and do admin job? You explain that to me, and you explain why these are purposely glossed over whenever the outrage posts on Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok, right? These are just blatantly ignored, and quite frankly, this is called dishonest behavior, okay? So does nursing have problems? Yes, it has problems. Burnout, right? A lot of people get burned out. It's a very stressful job. It's a very high-paced job. It's a very physically demanding and physically taxing job. Violence, it's the number one, right? And working in a hospital in general, okay, is more dangerous than military and law enforcement. It is the number one experiencers of violence in the workplace. The number one profession. Imagine going to work every day in a hospital. You are literally more likely to experience violence than a police officer or someone who works in the military and is deployed overseas. Staffing issues. There's always staffing issues. Getting to the core of staffing issues and shortages and all of that stuff. I've gotten into a little bit of it before and how certain things contribute to it, although aren't, I don't think there's a single root cause for all staffing issues. I think staffing is a very complicated thing, and I'll probably unpack this in multiple episodes going forward. And in fact, I might be having another guest on, a nurse executive on, that's an executive at another healthcare organization. I might be having her on to kind of maybe discuss some of that. Moral injury, some people just don't care. And that's why you'll have somebody working for 10 years and it seems like they maybe care a little less. It's because they have to separate their morals so much from what they do that, why even have a personality anymore at work? And then again, documentation burden. This is going away. So there's a lot of task-heavy stuff, but you're expected to be patient-centered. At the same time, you're given so many tasks to do that you're task-saturated. It should be a profession in which we are focused on people, but instead, I'm focused on getting all of these tasks done. Now, the consequences for not performing these tasks quickly enough is that something will happen to me in my job. And quite frankly, sometimes you're patient. And then if you're too focused on it, something will happen to your patient. And then as a result of that, something will happen to your job and sometimes your freedom, right? So these are real, they deserve attention, but that's different than saying nursing is a poor career financially. Both statements can be true at once. Nursing has a serious workplace issue, and nursing is still one of the strongest financial careers available. Here's what actually worries me. Social media has become so negative that prospective students think nursing is a terrible career. They hear, I hate nursing, I'm leaving nursing, don't become a nurse. You'll literally be on clinicals with somebody and a nurse will say, hey, don't do this. Like, don't get into nursing. Like, please don't do this. Do something else. I have personally had people I work with. I used to work at urgent care as a medical assistant, and there's a couple of them there. Once they found out, like, I'm in nursing school now, they're like, why would you do that? Like, that's a big mistake. Don't do that. So it's not even just on social media, but in person, people that are potentially going into nursing and people that are nursing students already are literally being told, you really shouldn't do this. It's horrible. It's a dead-end job. I was told that by somebody once. It's a dead-end job. To flat out not become, a nurse. Here's who they don't hear from, though. They're generally not talking to outpatient nurses, generally. PACU nurse, educators, informatics nurses, procedural nurses, flight nurses, ICU nurses. These are not generally the people that tell you you're making a big mistake by going into nursing. The loudest voices aren't always the most representative, if that makes sense. Online discussions can emphasize, the hardest bedside experiences. But many nurses point out the flexibility, the job security, and quite frankly, the diverse career paths that you have. So if you could go back, would you, if you're a nurse listening to this right now, if you could go back, would you still become a nurse? Why or why not? Put that in the comments. Everything comes down to what is out there what exactly is the trendy thing to say right now. What we need to realize is that outrage and pseudo activism, in other words, people complaining about things and not doing anything about it, aren't helping anyone and is actually making all of the issues that you're complaining about worse. Because if you're really wanting to get your message across about how crappy nursing is, then less people will get into nursing and you're going to have more of a shortage and you're going to have more staffing issues and you're just going to have more of the issues that you hate. So again, I would genuinely like to know from you nurses, would you choose something else? If so, what would it be and why? So again, thank you so much for listening to the Earning Podcast. If you like this podcast, please do leave a comment. If you want to come on the show, I'm having a couple guests. I have a couple guests lined up finally, so I'm not just sitting here like a friggin' weirdo talking to myself. I'm going to have some serious experts in the field on. Again, one of whom she said that she would be open to it, but just like what I would consider from being on LinkedIn so long, if this person comes on, it would basically be like the equivalent of, a regular podcaster being able to talk to a celebrity. Okay. Hopefully it works out. It could be one of the best podcast episodes I've ever done or ever will do, especially with the next couple that I have lined up. So again, share this with people. I'm also on Apple and I'm also on YouTube. If you want to listen to the podcast there, I should be doing some videos soon. I am going into my 4th semester of nursing school. So whenever I'm wrapping nursing school up and I'm a nurse, I'm going to have actually more time to be doing things like this. And I'm probably going to be doing a lot more video at that point in time because I have some plans lined up as far as revenue streams that I want to do from the podcast that doesn't involve interrupting a podcast with sponsors. I just really don't want to do that. I don't think that this podcast will ever get that big. I'm not looking to be obviously some super famous person. I'm just not of that caliber. But then again, I don't really have that much time. So again, thank you so much for listening. Go out there and earn it. Think like heirs.